Hellmaster EX. This award-winning system features the first single-engine joystick with digital electric steering and new autopilot capability. See Hellmaster EX in action at a Yamaha outboard dealer or visit YamahaOutboards.com.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
It's Thursday, September 19th, which means as of today, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 7 days left of the summer flounder season here at the Jersey Shore. No more fluking around after next Wednesday, September 25th. I'm Jim Hutchinson, New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine. So yeah, grab your friends and your gear, collect your loved ones, head on out, line the rails of your favorite party boat. Get yourself some fluke fillets, put them in the freezer before the curtain closes. Reefs, wrecks, inshore snags, your best bets. Inlet fishing, absolutely. Deeper channels, for sure. Out back, your best bet has been with live bait, peanut bunker, because the back bays are loaded with peanut bunker right now. Also spot, those smaller spot, those Cape May goodies. Excellent options if you want to put a fish or two in the box. But the caveat for the week for all of this is weather permitting. Foul winds, sour seas on the horizon this week from a mix of tropical weather systems here in the Northeast. Offshore, it looks particularly heinous in this weekend ahead. I doubt Tom P. will have much to report this weekend in his offshore column at the Fisherman magazine, which I would remind you, this weekend we're going to print with the Sunday edition. So Tom P's offshore column is probably going to be a lot of prospecting for the month of October. Chunking offshore, longfin and yellowfin. We're getting a couple of swordfish reports. I've heard of some good wahoo caught offshore on the speed troll. And in this week's reports at thefisherman.com, the mid-range pots are loaded with mahi up and down the beaches from Sandy Hook to Cape May, out a few miles. But again, I say weather permitting, because we're dealing with a mess, according to NOAA. It is, of course, that time of year when tropical systems play havoc on our fishing plans. But if I were to look at a cup that's half full, inshore, offshore, right? Both look like these heavy northeast. But okay, let's start with half empty. Yes, a system like this moves through, and a lot of times the fluke then all of a sudden move east during, before, or after the storm. But we've only got 7 days left, so that doesn't matter. Half full, I would say a storm like this mixes everything up, and the baits get all disoriented, they stack in the inlets, they start thinking maybe it's time for a move. So yeah, we start to see a lot of bait on the move at this time of year as well. The minus side, it's pumpkin spice time of year. I can't go anywhere. I can't go into any store without smelling pumpkin spice coffee, cheeses, pastries, those scented candles. For the folks at Yankee Candle, I've got an idea for you. Mid-September to early October, it's all about mullet here along the coast. So if you can capture that scent, a fresh cast net that was just loaded with mullet in the morning dew and mist of a September morning, the smell of the sea, that scent of success I would burn on my desk throughout the fall.
Now is the best time to buy a boat at the Jersey Shore Boat Sale and Expo. Fishing boats for inland and offshore. Tons of center consoles. September 27th through 29th, Shoretown Ballpark, home of the Jersey Shore Blue Claws. Tickets at jerseyboatexpo.com.
Life is better with a boat.
Save the date. Thursday, September 26th is the Fisherman Magazine's fishing show at the Hilton in Melville, Long Island. Doors open at 5 p.m. and the first 500 through the door get a bag full of fishing gear worth more than the $20 admission. Inshore, offshore, surf, we cover it all. Fishing seminars from the Sharpies. Great deals on tackle. A giant raffle. You don't want to miss out. Want to be an exhibitor? We still have a few tables available, but they're going fast. Contact the Fisherman at 631-345-5200 for more info. See you there.
We're just past the harvest moon, the full moon of September. That was on Tuesday. And of course, we're in the middle of a northeast here at the Jersey Shore. So that's got to make you think back a few years, more than a few years. September 21st, 1982 It was a Tuesday night. I wasn't there, but I know it was a Tuesday night. 30-knot winds, 8 to 10-foot swells, as the story goes, when Al McReynolds caught his world record striped bass at the Vermont Avenue Jetty in Atlantic City on a Rebel wind cheater lure. The first photos of Al's big fish, 78 pounds, 8 ounces, long-standing world record. They were taken by longtime Fisherman magazine editor and publisher Pete Barrett, my mentor, including this one of Al kissing his bass. That was published in the Fisherman earlier this year in a special story. But I got to tell you, going back, I started at the Fisherman in 2002. That fall, we decided to commemorate what would have been the 20th anniversary of Al's catch. So I retyped Pete's article, word for word, note for note. And then Pete brought in a sleeve, a plastic sleeve full of slides. If you remember slide film, it wasn't a negative, it was a positive. So you had these plastic sleeves of slides, and you'd have to hold the slide up to the light to figure out the photos. Well, anyway, Pete had like 24 photos taken of that world record catch. And of course, everybody knows the main photo taken outside of Campbell's, but there were some gems in there. I just remember that. What a special time. Al, of course, was fishing with his longtime surf fishing buddy, Pat Erdman, that night, who coincidentally is honored by name in the Atlantic County Surf Fishing Derby, the AKA Pat Erdman Memorial. That kicks off this Monday, September 23rd, and runs through November 24th. You can get details at Ray Scott's Dock in Margate. They coincide the start of their tournament with this special weekend, which of course, as the story goes, McReynolds and Erdman saw schools of mullet flashing in the heavy surf at Atlantic City at Vermont Avenue. They were caught in the pocket against the jetty rocks. Stripers and weakfish were piling on these baits. But it was a 5.5-inch black and silver Rebel wind cheater that found its mark at 10 p.m. that evening, 42 years ago this week, during the height of the Jersey Shore mullet run. Now, 42 years ago, our water temperatures were a little bit different. So you had cooler water temperatures back then, warmer now, which has kind of impeded our mullet run in terms of stripers piling on them. But can lightning strike twice? I believe it can. Facebook post from John at Betty and Nick's in Seaside Park this week gives hope, a glimmer of options. Yeah, they're only bluefish, but I know there's weakfish in the mix as well. And with those mullet getting stacked up and on the move and caught in that soup, those washing machine conditions this week, who knows what will happen? Who knows what will happen at the back end of this sometime next week if the winds turn out of the northwest for 2-3 days? Think about that. On this week's open boat, Jenni says it's an excellent time to hit the surf with your fresh bagged mullet to catch some bluefish and weakfish before our fall run goes into full swing. And who knows, you find the right pocket this weekend and the days ahead, you might be surprised on this anniversary of that special catch, September 1982, a world record striper. What say ye, Jenni?
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's open boat. And as promised last week, I went into the mullet bite, but specifically using them for fluke. This week, we're gonna go into the history of the infamous mullet run we get here off our coast. Now this is an excellent time. It's like the turn switch to get people ready for the fall run here in New Jersey. And if it happens, it's always a teetering point on, are we gonna get mullet? Are we gonna see this bite kick off? So in the past, from what I've experienced with the infamous mullet run is we have a whole operation. You go on the beach, you can see the mullet in the schools and they do a specific little ripple pattern in the water and you'll cast net them and we'll take them back to the local tackle shops, bag them up and sell them to you anglers. A lot of the times the mullet are sold with the orange float mullet rigs, the ones that come with the long spear and the hook that comes off, and people throw them out whole for either bluefish or striped bass. In the past, I've seen a usual major uptick in bluefish during the mullet run bite, which for the mullet lords here, we use that as a tactic for netting mullet. I will cast out, hook into a bluefish, and as it comes past the second bar, it will spook the mullet in closer to get all the netters to you know, see them and net up some mullet. So it's a whole operation, and it is just so much fun because, like I said, it kicks off the fall season. You know, we got the cooler temperatures, we got the water cooling down, we got the fish on the move, they're ready to eat, and us surf casters are ready to catch. After the long 3 months of the summertime, you know, we all have that itch. So that's just a little bit about the mullet, specifically the striped mullet, you know, striped mullet for striped bass and bluefish, of course, you know, that's what I get excited for. I love a good bluefish bite. And the one thing with the mullet run is you can get them on topwater. Like, you can't get me more excited than a topwater bite, especially with bluefish, because they go absolutely bonkers. But don't get me wrong, there are stripers in the mix, specifically based off of where you go in the area. You will get lucky and you'll get, hopefully, you can brag about it as your first fall run fish of the season, like that first alarm striper. But it's just a ton of fun. Like I said, it's a whole operation. And on next week's open boat, I'm gonna take you guys with me to show you the whole mullet lured operation that I've been a part of for many years. It's a great tradition for me. It's a ton of fun going down there and just watching the whole operation. And it's not even just one person netting mullet, it's a whole group of people, because, you know, we gotta have a little competition in the mix here, who gets the most mullet. And hopefully next week, we're gonna aim for, I don't know, I'm gonna lowball it here, maybe 50 dozen mullet, but I think we can easily hit triple-digit mullet, because there has been not even whispers anymore. It is full on, let's go, we're netting mullet now talk. So stay tuned for next week's open boat. I'm already like so excited to go down there and just show you guys the whole mullet lured operation, but definitely stay tuned and get your stuff ready. That's all I gotta say. Get your surf gear ready. Like, let's go. I'm so ready for the fall run season, and I hope you guys are too. Dust off the waders, check your line, your braid, make sure everything's fresh. Check your hooks, replace your hooks, get your stuff rolling. Get out there, let's go. I'll see you guys next week.
For more than 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing, that nothing says no to fish bites.
And now the Dream Boat Fishing Challenge entries for the week. We had only one entry this week, and that was from New England subscriber Fernando Lage from Seymour, Connecticut, with a sea robin weighing in at 2.31 pounds, and that was weighed in at D's Bait and Tackle, placing him in 10th place in the sea robin category. The leaderboard still stands at Scott Waterman with 17, Brian Zembreski with 12, Anthony Savino at 10 points. The fall run is on, so fish hard. There's still plenty of time to enter your fish to win that Steigercraft powered by Yamaha and many other great prizes. But you must be a Fisherman subscriber to enter. Another great reason to subscribe.
It was a slow week in the CKC with just one fish landing on the big board. Mark Carlson took second place in the sea bass category away from Justin Oser with this 21.5 incher, which had some major implications on the top three. Bob Wagner and Justin Oser are now locked in a virtual tie, but tiebreaker rules dictate that the angler with the largest fish between the two tied participants will earn the higher placement, which Bob Wagner does with his 48.5-inch striped bass. The top of the leaderboard now looks like this. Todd Trailens remains in third place with 5 points. Justin Oser drops into second place with 10 points, and Bob Wagner stands as our new leader with 10 points thanks to his heavyweight striper.
Get ready for the ultimate powerboating experience at the Annapolis Powerboat Show. Explore the latest models, gear, and accessories. Fun for the whole family with live demos, expert advice, and more. Your adventure starts here.
There must be bait around already. South Jersey's Steve Pasquarello was in Toms River over the weekend, decided to hit Island Beach for a little surf action, shot this video showing some larger fish jumping and spinning about a mile offshore. Maybe mammals, could be spinner dolphins, I guess, or perhaps spinner sharks. Steve said that the video only shows 2 of them, but there seem to be dozens of them leaping from the water for close to an hour. Sometimes I look offshore this time of year and I swear I see the torpedoes of king mackerel. But honestly, this summer we didn't get any king mackerel reports. A lot of Spanish mackerel in the wash. up until this point, and along the inshore waters with the bonita and those false albacore, but I haven't seen any king mackerel. Andy at Riptide Bait and Tackle in Brigantine said anglers there have been enjoying bluefish in the surf, but Andy noted over the weekend that there have been many species of note worth targeting, including tog from the jetty rocks, weakfish, summer flounder, and sheepshead. Yeah, the sheepshead are still around, predominantly South Jersey, but those bridge structures are still giving up sheepshead. We'll see what this storm system does. Maybe this is enough of a system that says, yeah, guys, it's time for us to get out of here too. Now, like other tackle shops at the Jersey Shore right now, Andy's been working hard to keep a real good bait assortment available for customers, including fresh mullet. We talked about that. The live minis for the end of the summer flounder season. Also green crabs, fiddlers, and sand fleas. For those of you looking for a tog along the jetty rocks or the bridge structures, or some late sheepshead as we head into the third week in September. Now, with the NOAA marine forecast staring us straight in the face, a lot of folks might just blow off the whole weekend ahead. But there are locations where you can duck out of the wind and waves and maybe even find some decent action to doing so. Surf-wise, keep in mind on a northeast swell, there are times when Sandy Hook, being as far north as it is and somewhat in lee of all those winds and the deep water swells coming from the northeast. So a lot of times Sandy Hook isn't as bad as the open beaches that it's actually getting that northeast deep water swell. I heard from Kevin Fallis this week. He found a 23-inch fluke in the wash at the hook recently. Kevin said he hopes for a good ending because, quote, boy, it was slow all season. Everyone's saying the same thing. Back Bay, front, south to north. For the most part, it's been a pretty dismal fluke season for everyone. And I'm anxious to see how the Marine Recreational Information Program, MRIP, that's what NOAA uses, that survey to document how many fish we're catching. I'm anxious to see what MRIP shows for our fluke catches when the season comes to an end after next week. We won't know that until later in the fall, maybe even the beginning of winter. But I will have more next week in the October edition of the Fisherman magazine, which, as I said, goes to print on Sunday night. I got to leave the issue under wraps for now as we're still buttoning up the final elements to go to print on Sunday night. But what I would say about the October edition is this. The last two seasons, following a week or two of heavy northeast, the onset of offshore northwest winds immediately following stormy conditions brought some really interesting action to our local beaches here at the Jersey Shore, especially in the first couple of weeks in October. Now, next week we go to print the week before October, but you want to keep an eye on the weather patterns after this heave and don't ever think that it's too early for things to take shape in the surf. So let's take a look at things at the end of this weekend as we start the week with your October edition next week and the reports that are out there. We'll talk about it next week, and I hope to be talking about us being in the midst of a heavy dose of northwest winds, which will chill off the surface water temperature, pushes off that warmer surface water temperature up. Offshore, some of the cooler water temperatures come up, and of course bait noses against the wind, and that northwest tends to push the bait out of the inlet, so who knows. That said, the old school thought has always been this tumultuous surf in a northeast puts stripers right there feeding on bait, right there in the wash. Now, I spent a couple of hours just walking my local beach on Saturday, a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours at night. I bumped into a buddy of mine Saturday morning who was throwing a tin, caught himself a striped bass. I bumped into a young caster Saturday afternoon around the same stretch. He showed me a cell phone photo of one striper he'd just taken, looked like a slot fish, on a bucktail with green plastic. Thankfully, the Spanish mackerel that I caught ensured that I didn't go home with the skunk. But as many of us over the last few falls have gotten accustomed to some of those bluebird afternoons with the northwest wind at our back, with all that bait in the local waters right now, you might consider throwing a heavy bucktail or a heavy shad into the heavy surf in the next several days. Be careful out there. But a lot of times with that bait getting all mixed around, stripers will come in tight and feed really close to the beach because of all that bait that's moving around. Heavy bucktail, beefy shad, who knows what happens out front unless you try. But things are starting to heat up out back and should continue to do so. Monmouth, Ocean, Atlantic, and Cape May counties. the backside of the barrier islands, out on the sod banks and the sedges, around the backs of the inlets, and in front of feeder creeks where the bait ostensibly is going to pour out on the outgoing tide. Dr. Cool here with a slot keeper that he caught, and I know he released because he doesn't clean fish. Whereabouts? Unknown. Another guy on the fall stripers, 100% pure strain landlocked striped bass or lake-locked striped bass at Beltsville Reservoir. I know my wife and I are headed up to the Poconos in a couple of weeks, partake in a little bit of freshwater action at a private lake and enjoy some of the fall foliage. But as George Shower said this week, fall can be the best season for sweetwater striper fishing. Indeed, it is on the saltwater side, but let's find out exactly what George is talking about up there in Beltsville.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. You know, great conditions here in the Poconos and western part of New Jersey. Great fishing, great time of year to get out and get on a bite. You know, we've been following Chris Matchison the past few weeks. He's been getting on that real hot crappie bite down there in South Jersey. This week, he checked in with a real nice largemouth. It's different. He said the crappie bite is still hot, but he's starting to pick up some of these nice largemouth as well. Also, closer to home, over here in Lake Harmony, we had local Debbie Perez. She got into a really nice largemouth as well. So the largemouth bites is certainly starting to turn on, guys, if you're out looking for some of them. Now, I posted up on social media. Didn't have a great weekend for myself and Josh Taylor. Well, we were out trying to get some of those stripers. We could pick them up on the machine. They were starting to school up a little bit. Couldn't get them to blitz, and we certainly couldn't get them to bite a jig. So I think we might be just a tad early to get on those stripers in Beltsville. But up on Wallen Compact, guys, a little bit of a different story. We had Fisherman X up there, and he's certainly getting them dialed in with a real nice striper here out of the pack. So I think conditions continue to improve as we get into those cooler and cooler months, especially for those striper and those cold water fish. We got the trout coming up, the muskie, the pike, walleye, a lot of great fishing over the next several months, guys. So stay tuned for that. Water temperatures at Beltsville was still in the mid-70s. Checked on the Delaware River right before this report. It was about 72. So still a bit warm, guys. We got some room to go. So be sure you get out and get on this weekend. But from Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors guy.
Upcoming events in the New Jersey, Delaware Bay, Pennsylvania, and New York region of interest. I say New York, next Thursday, September 26th, the big show out on Long Island, the Fisherman Magazine's offshore, inshore, and surf show at the Huntington Hilton. It always coincides with the Montauk kickoff. A lot of folks like to go out there and partake in the Montauk action for a few days and then attend this show. That, of course, is a bait-dependent kickoff as well. But there are seminars next Thursday. Crazy Alberto's in town. You've got goodie bags to every person who pays to enter the door. You get a goodie bag full of stuff. A lot of tackle on the floor, some special discounts. National manufacturers will be there. Of course, I'll be there. Jenni's going to be there. Dave Anderson from New England's going to be there. Of course, Matt's shepherding the whole show from Long Island. But you can get all the details at thefisherman.com or picking up that September edition of the Fisherman Magazine. This weekend, closer to home, field editor Nick Honicheski of the Saltwater Underground will be out at Fisherman Supply in Point Pleasant on Saturday, September 21st. That's at 5 p.m. Little happy hour presentation on surf stripers at the Jersey Shore. I'm sure that the folks at Fisherman Supply will have a few tackle specials in the shop. And I certainly wouldn't doubt that that happy hour continues sometime after 7 p.m. across the street at the Broadway. I don't know. Just a hunch. By the way, Nick's annual beach brawl is coming up October 11th and 12th. The area is between Point Pleasant and Island Beach State Park. That tournament is a two-day event. It's based out of the Playa Bowls and Crab's Claw Inn in La Valette. You can enter today, $45. go to saltwaterunderground.com. Now, you're going to find more events for September in that September edition of the Fisherman magazine. Turn to page 9 of this edition for the calendar of events. It's almost run out for the month of September, and that's why we're sending you a new copy, a new magazine for October sometime next week. But if you look in that table of contents right now, you'll see some of the other upcoming events in the next couple of weeks. You've got the Jersey Shore Boat Sale and Expo in Lakewood next week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll be there, the Fisherman magazine. We'll have those Tsunami iPop poppers for your new or renewing subscription to the Fisherman magazine. A Sodbank striper killer in the fall months, of course. The 55th annual Ocean City Fishing Clubs event is this weekend. That's another ASAC season that's underway. Get the details on that tournament in your September edition. You've also got, with ASAC underway, you've got the 69th Pennsauken Club surf event. That's in North Wildwood. That's next week. So, as we head into another fall surf season, now's the time to gear up. Everything that you need. That includes checking your waders for leaks. I had forgotten how bad my waders were. I just bit the bullet and I bought a new set of Grundon's waders. I've got so much silicone patch on those old frog togs, I just couldn't do it anymore. Anyway, you want to check your waders. If you forgot about the leak, you got to inspect the reels, make sure those reels aren't sticking, make sure your guides are in good place. Go through your plugs and lures, look for rusty hooks and such. We'll have more on that next week because as I review the October edition, that's one topic of note of gearing up in the fall. I mentioned some of the conservation stuff. I've got an article in there about black sea bass and MRIP and what we're looking at in terms of 2025. That's next week. But now is definitely the time to really start thinking about it. On all these iPop poppers that I throw and the Yazori 3D inshores in the back, I take all the barbs down, tamp every barb down. You might also want to consider swapping out the trebles on those favorite twitch baits or plastic swimmers. Let me leave you with some advice this week. Jenni Ackerman had an opportunity to sit down with my buddy Nick Cicero from Tsunami for advice on what we can all do gear-wise this fall to help reduce the mortality rate of striped bass, because 7 days left of fluke, northeast this weekend, let's look for northwest next week, but as time ticks down, it's ticking away towards the greatest time of year, not pumpkin spice, striped bass madness.
Striper conservation is such an important topic. Conservation in general is so important, and you have a ton of stuff here that really advocates for striper conservation. Like everyone switches out their trebles for single hooks, and you have new single hooks just made for that. I know with my twitch bait, I switch out the tail hook. I keep the treble on there, but I switch out the tail hook, and it always produces.
Yeah, so there's, what we're seeing. Well, first of all, if you looked at any of our newer baits that have the Tsunami treble hooks on, you'll notice the barb profiles are really, really small. Mm-hmm. Now, we advocate crushing the barbs down, and quite honestly, we found that you really don't lose very many fish at all, but the amount of time and effort that it takes to take the hook out on a barbless hook as opposed to one that's barbed, it's amazing. You do a lot less damage. Single hooks, we introduced some single hooks this year for tail hooks, and again, very small barb profiles on these. They're really easy to crush the barb down and get a completely barbless hook. With braided line today, with no stretch, it's easy to keep a tight line. It's just so much easier to release fish with barbless hooks as it is barbed hooks, and single hooks, especially single tail hooks, because it's that tail hook that tends to get down a bass's throat when he comes in, especially like on a glide bait or something like that, where he comes in from behind and just inhales it.
Yeah.
And with a single hook, it's kind of easy to just get your finger, pop it out, no blood. Whereas trebles, they just get in the gill plates. I think we all have to pay attention to the hook choices we make, and especially in some of these blitz situations that we get, we just need to be a little more careful and take care of our resource.